Environment Institute, the partner of this workshop. This workshop is organized by Korean Ministry of Environment and supported by Korean Organizing Committee for 2011 WCC. We are sincerely grateful for all the participants of this symposium, including the audience and the presenters and panels. And I would like to remind you that simultaneous interpretation is available now. So please check the device if you need. It's a great pleasure to have this wonderful opportunity to share the regional experience on climate change adaptation of Korea, especially since 2010 when the National Adaptation Master Plan has been established. And we really hope that this workshop can introduce you the recent status and activities of Korea adaptation policy and its implementation, and we hope we can exchange the ideas to improve the adaptation policy to preserve the ecosystem against the changing climate. Let me introduce the program briefly. First, we will start with the keynote speech by Mr. Park Kyung-woo, the Director of UNEP Regional Office for Asia Pacific. Then we will have two presentations. The first one is the Korea's climate change adaptation policy by Mr. Seo Hong-won from Ministry of Environment, and followed by the regional case, the presentation entitled Human Environmental Welfare Policies for Climate Change Adaptation by Park Shin-hwan from local government of Gyeonggi Province in Korea. After the presentation, we'll have the panel discussions, which I believe could help the nature-based adaptation policy for Korea and global biosphere. Now let me introduce the distinguished participants of the sessions. Please welcome Dr. Park Kyung-woo, the Director of UNEP Lower. Please. And Dr. Jeon Ui-chan, he is a chair of this session, and he's from Sejong University. Nice to meet you. And Mr. Seo Hong-won from Ministry of Environment. And Mr. Park Shin-hwan from local government of Gyeonggi Province. Dr. Kang Hae-sun from Seongshin University. Dr. Song Young-bae from Korea University. Dr. No Tae-ho from Korea Environment Institute. And Dr. Jamison Urban from UNDP. Finally, I'd like to ask all of the audience for one thing. We prepared the survey sheet. I think you can find here. And we want to receive your opinions and suggestions for Korea climate change adaptation policy. Please fill out this form before you leave after this session. I think your opinion is very important for us. Thank you. Okay, then I'm going to hand over this microphone to the chairman, Dr. Jeon Ui-chan. Please welcome him.
네, 원활한 진행을 위해서 우리 말로 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 환경부 주최하시고 또 우리 환경정책평가원에서 주관해 주신 Climate Change Adaptation Policy in Korea의 코리아 워크숍의 좌장을 맡게 된 전 이-찬입니다. 오늘 지금 우리 신 박사께서 설명하시는 것과 같이 기조연설이 약 15분 정도에 걸쳐서 있겠고, 이어서 바로 발표자 두 분께서 발표해 주실 겁니다. 한 분은 한국의 기후변화 적응 정책에 관해서 환경부에서 발표해 주시겠고, 이어서 우리나라의 대표적인 광역지방자치단체인 경기도의 기후변화 적응 추진 현황에 대해서 박신환 국장께서 발표해 주실 겁니다. 각각 15분 내외에 발표를 해주시도록 하겠습니다. 이어서 네 분의 전문가들께서 약 7분에서 10분 정도에 걸친 그런 지정 토론을 하시겠고, 이어서 프로와에 계신 분들하고 우리 발표자 또는 토론자들 간에 상호 의견을 교환하는 그런 프로와 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 그러면 토론자들을 앞에 모셔서 처음부터 이 워크숍에 참여토록 그렇게 하겠습니다. 토론자들께서는 앞으로 나와주십시오. 그러면 먼저 UNEP 아태 지역 사무소장을 맡고 계신 박영호 박사를 모셔서 아태 지역의 기후변화 적응 현황 및 발전 방향에 관한 기조 강연을 듣도록 하겠습니다. 박영호 박사님을 박수로 맞이해 주십시오.
Good morning, dear colleagues and distinguished experts and friends, and especially the chairman, Johnny Chan, my longtime friends, and also my UN colleagues from UNDP. It is my great pleasure to be here with you in this important event on climate change adaptation in Asia and the Pacific, organized by Korean Adaptation Center on Climate Change at Korea Environmental Institute. And I also would like to express my sincere thanks to the organizer for inviting me as a representative of UNEP to deliver keynote speech, as well as for bringing excellent panel members to contribute to this important issue. And since Chairman Chun reminded me the time constraint, 15 minutes, and so I will go brief. I will make my presentation in brief, and if you need full text of my keynote speech, you can have it, I think, from the KI's the homepage on this event. So I will try to be brief, and so that at the end of the session we will have more time to have discussion and also the interactions. So let me begin with key facts of Asia and the Pacific region. Though it is known to you, but to refresh your mind. The Asia and the Pacific region is around 30% of the global land mass and inhabitant of 60% of the world's population. Among them, 1 billion is poor. When we define poor, it means the ones who live with less than $1.50 per day, which is just equivalent to the bus fare in Korea. So you can imagine what it means to be a poor in this region and also around the region, around the world. Geographically, the region is a collection of various categories of countries, such as least developed countries, small island developing countries, and countries with low-lying coastal areas and islands, and landlocked countries, mostly located in Central Asia and South Asia, and also part of Southeast Asia. The region is also has very fast-growing and large economy, like China and India, and countries with strong economic and technological bases, such as Japan and South Korea. The region is diverse in many aspects, which is also strengths in terms of possible South-South cooperation. In the context of climate change, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, in its first assessment report, identified Asia to be among the most vulnerable regions. The situation probably remains same as there has not been major improvement of systems to address vulnerability to climate change, either in the form of adaptation in the region or reduction of signification of greenhouse gases at global level. Dear colleagues, let me elaborate it further by highlighting several facts to unpack it and understand the situation. First assessment report and subsequent publication in the climate change clearly stated 4 signs of changes. These are temperature, rainfall, sea level, and extreme events. Of course, few or some experts have argued with the findings of IPCC and saying that whether it is really happening or not. But I think the most important thing we have to realize is not whether the number is correct or not, but the trend is there. The trend is important. So rather than arguing on whether the number is correct or not, we have to look at the trend. And so the trend shows changes temperature and the rainfall and sea level and extreme events. So let me elaborate 4 signs of climate change. First, changes in temperature. Of course, it differs from country to country and region to region and sub-region to sub-region, but it is happening, and it happens around 1 degree Celsius to 3 degrees Celsius. And the variation in rainfall. According to IPCC first assessment report, interseasonal, interannual, and the spatial variability in rainfall trend has been observed during the past few decades all across Asia. And Korea experienced this year, and also other countries in our region. And also changes in sea level. Sea level has risen at the rate of 1.8 millimeter per year since 1961 and 3.1 millimeter per year since 1993. So it is getting more serious. And also, if the Greenland ice sheet, which could raise the sea level by 6 meters, if it melted away, is currently losing more than 100 cubic kilometers per year, faster than can be explained by natural melting. And also, if we look at changes in climate-related disaster, I don't think I have to elaborate further on this. You have experienced in Korea, and also you have witnessed what's happened in Manila and Pakistan and Indonesia and so on in this region. And if we look at the vulnerability of the region and the community, 4 regions and the 4 communities are most vulnerable in this region. As mentioned earlier, that Asia has been identified to be among the most vulnerable region. However, vulnerability varies within region and within country too. And natural resources in Asia Pacific are facing tremendous pressure, coming both from growing demand of population as well as changing environment. Land, water, forest, biodiversity, all are facing challenges at different rates and scale in different places. And vulnerability of community and people vary as well. Water endowments in Asia Pacific range from the highly arid temperature zones and the water-stressed small island states, to Himalayan snowfields and abundant tropics, often alternating between drought and flood. Adverse impacts of climate change stimuli, including variability and extreme events, are additional stress on existing pressure that the system is already facing. It has implications on availability of water resources and its quality. Impacts on water resources depends on sectors such as agriculture, particularly rain-fed agriculture in the region, which is significant, and impact are unequivocal. Considering climate change-induced impacts and adaptive capacity, generally 4 areas in the region are among the most vulnerable regions to climate change. These are megadeltas and large watershed, particularly in Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Mekong, and the Mekong River watershed, and low-lying coastal areas and small islands, and coastal cities. It is fact that climate change will affect everyone, but the poor and the poorest of the poor are most vulnerable and will bear the brunt of climate change. How it affects to the poor and the poorest of the poor, I don't have to mention to you about the developing countries in this region. Even in Korea, when such a thing happens, who are the most vulnerable, most seriously affected? It's the poor. And so that's why it is important to work on the climate change adaptation. And according to, and also, you are aware that by 2020, Asian cities will be host to 20.2 billion people, which is half of the world's urban population. Poor urban households are often concentrated in the most low-lying areas. Those are regularly exposed to potential storm and tidal surges, while lacking the resources and capacity to respond to adverse effects. In addition to cities, rural communities near the coastal area are also vulnerable. It is also to be noted that situation varies among countries and within countries. For example, 1 meter sea level rise in Bangladesh could affect up to 40 million people. UNESCAP and the UNISDR 2010 report revealed that people in Asia are 4 times more likely to be affected by natural disaster than those in Africa, and 25 times more than those living in Europe or North America. There is also a report that revealed that Asia accounted for 75% of disaster deaths in the past decade. Island communities are already vulnerable, and climate change-related extreme events, particularly cyclones, are likely to be more intense, with a higher peak wind speed. According to an environmental vulnerability index developed by the South Pacific Applied Geoscience Commission, UNEP, and their partners, Kiribati, Maldives, and Tuvalu are extremely vulnerable to environmental shocks, while Samoa is rated as highly vulnerable. Sea level rise is likely to exacerbate cyclone storm, surges, and associated problems. Asia and the Pacific has one of the most important mountains areas, of which the Hindu Kush Himalaya region is one of the most vulnerable region to river floods and glacial lake outburst floods. People living in the marginal areas of the Hindu-Kush Himalaya mountains have long been exposed to many kinds of environmental changes and have a history of adapting to uncertainties, but they now face difficulty in adapting to more rapid, intense changes. Adaptation is not new, but need planned adaptation. Communities living in rural areas have long experiences to adapt their lifestyles and livelihood to the local environment and have often modified ways living as these circumstances changes. Consultation with communities during formulation of National Adaptation Action Plan in Bangladesh revealed that community know little of climate science, but they tend to react to immediate problems rather than anticipating future changes. Studies by ISIMO further revealed that though communities react on immediate problems, nevertheless